Okay, I'd like to welcome everyone to the second budget workshop as we work to prepare the 2021 budget. And we've already gotten everybody's attendance right, Jill, for us. We're joined by Jim Martin, from our zoning administrator, and we also have Jeffrey Cruz, our principal account analyst for the town. And where would you like us to continue?
We're going to start on zoning B810.
Yeah, these are very small budgets.
I like small budgets.
B85. 8010. Right, 8010.
So small and round.
Only essentially 2 lines.
All right, so that is plan for zoning, and we have, I think we've included everything that was requested for the zoning update and the comprehensive plan as we continue to move forward on that.
Right.
The 2020 adopted budget had $35,000 in there. The request to continue that process for 2021 was $35,000. We kept it at $35,000. We also have a zoning administrator under this account code, and the cost for that, the LA group has agreed to keep their costs the same as 2020, so therefore the number remains the same.
And I would note that that's been the same since the inception. There's never been an increase in that.
Never been increased, so that's been for how many years?
4.
4 years. And the town very much appreciates working with the LA group on that. So that figure, and this is for where 80% of the funding is for the zoning administrator, is $46,675 for request. It's in the tentative budget. And the total contractual includes $10 per meeting increase for zoning board members. So that figure is $7,380 for a total.
And the zoning board meets less frequently than the planning board.
Right.
They're more like an as needed basis.
Exactly. So the total appropriation request for the .4 account is $89,055. Any comments, questions on that?
I just thought I might go through the general approach to the zoning update, take this opportunity to do that. The approach I'm using is much like we did with the comprehensive plan. The zoning board, town board, and planning board will get the draft updates as they're done. I'm going to have the first one out in the next couple weeks, and that'll carry on right through. I expect a large part of next year. And that way, all 3 boards are simultaneously informed of, where the draft is at. And I use the zoning board and planning board meetings in addition to the regular agenda to take their comments that they may have on the draft text. It seemed to work good during the comp plan. As you know, Alan, you were recently on the board. These boards work a lot in these codes. And so they do have some very pertinent and, I think relevant ideas about, useful and constructive amendments to the code. So I thought that was a good approach to doing that. And at the same time, you as the town board, obviously you're the final approving legislative body. You're kept up to speed as the, amendments occur, or you will be as the amendments occur, or are suggested anyhow, the draft language. And so when we do get a cohesive final chapter, updated, you'll be fully up to speed as to how it was, constructed and how we came to that point. And obviously still have ample opportunity to comment on it, as needed and revise it, until the very end.
If it's a quick question, if I may. Yes. Would we be approving each of those as sections and move along, or is it a final package?
No, it's a final package. It's just in the interest of keeping, communications open. And obviously you can call me, I think you all know that, anytime, should you have a comment, email me, call me, whatever you want to do. But I figured that was a good way to keep, everybody in the loop. So you don't get one final package at the end and say, gee, where'd all this come from? How'd all this come to be? So.
Thank you.
Has anything gone out yet, zoning plan?
No.
So they're not getting comments yet either?
No, the first, like I said, the first package will be going out, I expect in the next couple of weeks. And what I like to do, just so that mechanically, I will send out, the first one will be a draft. I'll get comments. I will do a track changes version on the next one of what was sent. And then at the same time, you'll get the next section of revisions, and we'll just keep working that process all the way through.
Thank you.
Now, the other thing I wanted to try and get some input from you on this. Nothing is set in stone. This is not the final time to talk about this, but one of the, I think, problems that has occurred in this code over the years is it's been developed in a fragmented fashion. In other words, we have zoning as a chapter, but things like fences and signs and the subdivision regulations, that's not so rare to see that in a separate chapter. But certainly things like fences, outdoor chickens, like backyard chickens, signs, those are things that really should be in the code, in the zoning. And right now they're separate standalone chapters. It's cumbersome and it's awkward. And functionally, the primary problem with that is if somebody wants to appeal for a variance, it's not in the zoning chapter, so that option's not available to them. And typically it is. Like a sign is a dimensional requirement. You should be able to get or at least seek a variance for that, because it's a dimensional standard, just like a setback, much like that. So the idea was to try and consolidate some of those separate chapters into the zoning and clean up the overall code. And I just wanted to.
Yeah, no, I think it's a great idea. Put it in there.
Yep.
It is probably.
So it's consolidated into one location. It'll make it more user-friendly. I think most importantly, the consideration, it'll be more user-friendly for the resident. And I think it'll be an easier code for the town to administer overall.
I would agree.
Okay. So that's what you'll be seeing. So when you see the chapters, you'll see how that's built in. And ultimately, if this ultimately is the thing you decide you want to do and you adopt it, then obviously those chapters of the code will be eliminated and it will be consolidated into the zoning chapter. Okay?
Next.
Next page, B81.
20, which is planning. And we also had earmark funding in there for subdivision regulations. We adopted $22,000 for that purpose. The request for this year was $22,000. We did not use that $22,000 this year. We will leave that the same at $22,000 for 2021 tentative budget. The zoning administrator, this is where the other 20% of that contract comes from, is funded, and that number again is the same as it has been for previous 4 years. It's in the budget at $11,669. So the total contractual figure also in the .2 account is $10,150. So total .4 account figure is $43,819. And this is where the planning board members would also be paid out of, which they will receive a $10 increase over this year's pay, correct?
That's for 2020.
Oh, we kept it flat in this one, so there is no increase.
We have a full complement. We've got 7 board members and 2 alternates. So we have a full complement there. It would be nice to have the alternate for the zoning board if we can ever get to that.
Well, we've got it on our website, as we get people.
Yep. I know it's hard to get people, but it would be nice to have that.
Are there any questions on those numbers? Next account. That's it?
Yep.
Anything else for us?
I just want to say, thank you for, retaining us over the years. I've enjoyed it immensely. I think it's been, it was kind of an experimental move in the beginning. Alan was here for that, Todd as well. And I think it's worked out very well. And, I hope the community feels like they're getting good service in their zoning administration. Please always tell me if you feel anything to the other or hear anything to the otherwise. But I think it's been a good arrangement and things are being effectively administered. So.
Well, it's certainly a critical area now for the town with our
Sewer coming on.
development that's occurring in the corridor. So it's a very important position.
Things are popping. We got Winterberry subdivision already has got 12 houses being constructed in it. And we have, on this month alone, this month's agenda, we got 3 more subdivisions on for approval. So, I mean, nothing really huge in number, but, there's a lot of activity out there this year.
Could I ask one thing?
Sure.
On the monthly report, when you have places that are requesting like a subdivision, you give a location.
Yes, I can do that. That can easily be done. Yep.
Okay, quick question for you. So as we get busier in our corridor, down here in Route 9 corridor, do you feel that this arrangement will continue to work well, or do you think we're gonna need more of you going, going
Oh,
forward?
no, I don't see, I'll let you know that, but I think there's an existing capacity in the system, so to speak, that we can absorb that. I will let you know though, certainly, because one of the worst things that can happen is you can get behind.
Right.
I'll let you know that. I think we're doing fine now, and I've implemented some measures that, can accommodate, additional, information coming through. But the thing I always make sure of, any resident that calls the offices, the call is returned in the same day. Nobody's ever left hanging for, with a question, if they have a question about something or a complaint.
And then another question, thank you, another question, any tips for us to allow us to be able to pick up a part-time code enforcement officer somewhere? Like how would we do this? We've been throwing that out there, we're not getting anything in it.
I think Todd, he's actively approached other communities because other communities have like part-time officers. And if we could get that other half of their time, that would be one way. The other thing I would encourage, if it hasn't been done, I'm not aware of your specific efforts, but I typically where you see people come forth is out of the trades. Somebody who's retired or approaching retirement wants to keep their they want to stay active in the trades. They're usually a good resource for an enforcement officer.
Okay.
If we get a retired person who's worked in, carpentry or something in the trades, that would be great. They have an inherent understanding of the industry. Code enforcement's a little more difficult. It's a little more tricky. Peter was pretty good. Peter Goldslaw was that was a shame. The other thing I would say, if we could, with that position that worked out well with him, is that he also was a certified building inspector. So in the days that Matt was sick or on vacation, you have, in-house backup built right in, and that was a nice arrangement. And he could do the plan review as well.
Right, no, I think he was good for us, it certainly was a loss.
So, but that's, if you haven't tried that, if there's any way we could get into that world and maybe try and get a person who's retired or semi-retired, that would be
Okay.
one resource.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Jim, appreciate it.
Thank you, Jim, thank you for all you do.
Thanks, Jeff. Jeffrey, where you want to head next?
Can we take care of the special items that came up?
Yep.
The new pieces of paper that were
Yeah.
passed out to everybody?
So,
And if we want to start with road striping, that's account A 3310. If you want to go back to that in your binders.
Welcome back.
is that in relation to the request?
No, that's the email that came in from Paul.
A3310?
Yes.
We have to begin.
This email.
Duplicate roads.
So Paul, when he was here, he said that new roads, you had put 0 in for striping next year. And he
Right.
requested that new roads that are being paved, so Mott, Selfridge, and Pine Road, that they could get some money in striping for those particular roads.
All right, so we had left the $4,000 in there until we had heard back, is that correct?
It was 0. We left
Oh, we zeroed it out.
Zero.
All right, so we'll have to add $2,600 for next year.
That's under miscellaneous.
That would be under road strike,
490.
that's zeroed out, yeah. So so what was the miscellaneous figure we had in there?
He didn't have it in miscellaneous budget this year.
That's signs. I read that wrong, because I didn't.
Signs like 1,000 each year.
Oh, all right. How much did we use year to date for signs? Signs are strict. What's the signs was 4,000.
Yeah.
I have August numbers, I don't know all of September, but he used, of 3,200 budgeted, he's used 1,891, so remaining 1,308.
So I think we can cut that for next year a little bit then, don't you think? Take 1,000 off of that, the 4,000 that we have in there, he's only used 18 year to date.
That is up to the board.
I'm okay taking 1,000 off that, to help offset some of the costs of the striping.
So that goes to 3 now.
Yes, we go to 3,000 for signs, and we will add road striping from 0 to 2,600. That work for everybody?
Yeah, that's total number
600, all right. What else?
All right, now we can go to the other resolution that we were going to talk about for crack seal. So this is in DB 5112. And instead of having crack seal purchased in 2021, the board was curious if he could purchase this crack seal in 2020. And to do so, he requested a transfer of funds from one account to another. So if he could do this.
Yeah, so if the board would like to do it out of this year's budget, it will require a budget transfer for the 2020 budget for Golden Place Recycling account, the DB 5112.493.3, which has a remaining balance of $78,400 for September 30th. We would need a resolution that authorizes the transfer of $5,600 from that account to account DB 5112.493.2, which is crack seal. And then we would also authorize the purchase of the crack seal from that account in the amount not to exceed $5,600 from the 2020 fiscal year. So if the board is okay, somebody would like to move that motion.
I would know that.
I'll second. Do we have to read this, or
Do you want to read it? No, you have it in that I just read, right? Okay, so second, we have a first and second. Any discussion on that? This will help the budget for 2021, getting it this year, so that's great. All in favor?
Yes.
Opposed? Motion carries 4-0.
So we're waiting for Matt from the building department, but in the meantime,
Building department was 5:45, wasn't it?
correct, in the meantime,
We can start it. We can start it.
you want to go ahead and do it?
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's B 3620.
Okay, we'll be coming back to salaries, so we'll go right into equipment. And the 2020 request that we had in there that he had was for a computer, a Galaxy tablet. We had that money in 2020 adopted budget. It was not expended. He requested it for 2021. I zeroed it out because there's still time to purchase it this year. So if he wants to purchase it, he can buy it out of this year's budget. He had requested also a printer for $250. We had budgeted for that last year. The purchase was not made, so he had requested it for the 2021 budget. I zeroed it out because again, that's another item that he can purchase out of this year's budget. Miscellaneous training, we had adopted 2,500 for that. That's the conferences that are required for building and code enforcement, I believe. And we had 2,500 in there for 2020. He requested the same amount again, but I reduced that to 2,000, but because I think we had a significant amount still remaining there that was unexpended. So in an effort to keep this budget lean, I took $500 out of it, which is still a funding level that was more than we had to use year-to-date for 2020. So the .2 count, I'm sorry.
Just to ask on that, is that strictly for him, that training, or is that for the planning board?
That's for the building inspector. No, it's not planning. Planning and zoning has their own. Yeah.
That's for purchasing miscellaneous equipment and being trained on that.
Okay. That's a miscellaneous and training.
And then there's also additional training in the contractual.
Okay. Mandatory training.
Right.
Okay.
So moving on to the contractual for the mandatory training, we had budgeted $1,000 for 2020. The request was for $1,000. I left that request in at $1,000. The same is true for the scanner, plotter service training. He had requested the same amount that we had funded 2020 at $1,500. I reduced that to $500. It was unexpended, I believe it was unexpended for 2020, right?
It was.
And so I'm not so sure that, we need to have 3 times that level in there since we didn't use it this year. And again, the money's there. If there's training that needs to occur, we can do it this year. So I reduced that to 500. The VAS system, that's a contract, I believe, that we have to pay annually for those services. That's pretty much cut and dried. So that amount is $3,370, which was the request, and I left it at $3,370. It's up a little bit from last year, which was $3,200. Other contractual, what would this include? Other contractual.
Just generic expenses that come out, whether it's postage or paper.
Okay. And we've just been joined by Councilmember Donovan. Appreciate having you work with us here. And I'm sorry, Jeff, the 11,500 for other contractual, what is that for?
That's just generic spending, whether it's supplies or mileage reimbursement, anything that comes up throughout the week.
Okay, gotcha. So I left that figure as the same number that we had in the 2020 budget. That was the same number that the department had requested. So the total appropriation request for the B3620 account is $134,091. Okay, any questions on that?
You didn't speak to the top two. I don't care about the bookshelves so much, but the scanner plotter you requested, is that because ours is dead or was it looking for a new one? What was the request for the scanner plotter, $8,000?
The current one we have is broken and it cannot be fixed. They've called people out to come fix it, they can't do it. So this is for they were requesting the purchase of a new one, but they did not give any quotes or anything to go along with the budget figure they put in there. There is additional money in the .2 account if they wanted to purchase it this year,
Yeah.
but the recommendation was to purchase a smaller model, something we don't need. We don't need the big plotter scanner that we've used in the past.
I just wanted to make, so we can take it offline. If it could come out of this year's, I agree, we shouldn't be spending that much on a big plotter if they don't need it. I just want to make sure we weren't putting the staples and paying a lot more at the end. Doesn't sound like that's the case. We'll take it offline.
Okay. Everybody good with that? All right, any other questions on B3620 building inspector? Now we'll move on to what's next.
Let's go back to the beginning. A1110. Court.
Court A1110, we'll be addressing the salaries, but just for the record, the request that I received included 5% increase, I believe, in salaries for the elected officials and 10% for their staff. And again, we'll come back to talk about that as we wrap up, hopefully this evening's budget session. The total contractual for 2020 was $158,127 in the adopted budget. The requested contractual was $169,953, and I cut that back to $161,292. Total contractual in the .2 account, the adopted budget had $19,000. The justice required $19,800. I took a look at what was expended, and I trimmed that back to $19,000. Total appropriation request is $189,753. The tentative budget includes $180,292. Any questions on that page? No.
A1330,
A1330.
tax collection.
Tax collection, this helps, some of these monies are earmarked to pay for personal services for the town clerk and the deputy town clerks. Again, we'll talk about that for later on in this evening's session. I would like to say for the record that the request regarding salary in relation to the town clerk, she had requested that we keep her pay the same as 2020, and any amount that she would otherwise have been afforded an increase for 2021 would be provided to her staff. So I want to make sure the record reflects that. For the BAS system, She had requested 2,250, that was the number that I put in the tentative budget for miscellaneous office supplies, postage, mileage, dues. She had requested 4,000. I put in the 4,000. And for computer support, she had requested $400, and I left that at $400. The total appropriation request for the A1330 account is $26,086. The amount I have in the tentative is $26,165. Any questions?
Thanks for.
Anything else?
8:14. Town clerk.
Again, salaries we'll discuss later. I did pull up the typical 2% that we've done across the board for all the salaries. We have no requests, similar to last year, under equipment. Under contractual for general computer maintenance, we had adopted $450 last year. The request this year was $1,000, and I left the request in at $1,000. The BS for the town clerk maintenance contract, again, that's a number that we can't adjust. The adopted budget had $1,890. The request was again the same amount, $1,890, so I included the same. The general code, 697 was in the adopted budget. The request was again 697. I left that at 697. And miscellaneous supplies, postage, mileage, dues, etc. Last year was 3,200 in the adopted budget. Request was for 3,500 this year, and I left that request in at 3,500. So the requested amount for .4 account was $7,087, and we have $7,087 in the tentative budget. Total appropriation request for the A1410 account is $112,833.
A6989. Records management.
$69.89. So again, this is part of the town clerk's pay,
Yes.
and the adopted budget was 1,067. She kept that flat in her request, 1,067. I did the 2% increase would be $1,088. Under contractual and .2 account, this would be for digitization of old microfilm records. Am I accurate in that account?
That'd be,
Yeah, we didn't have,
contract.
oh, just contractual.
Yes.
We did not have any money in the adopted budget for this. She requested $250. I left the request in at $250. So the total appropriation request for town hall and records management account A6989 is $1,338. Any questions on that?
All right, you guys turn to page A7140.
Yep.
We're going to start with record in just a few minutes, but before we get there, there was one change that needed to be made to this page, and that was the red clay.
Oh, the park improvements.
Yes, so
So this will be the point.
if you look down to .4 and their park improvements, the intention was to put $3,600 in there for red clay, and Pete can speak more about that.
As an additional item,
Yes.
Yes.
36.
3,600.
And where would that go under contractual, or would it be park improvements?
It's basically in line with park improvements.
Oh, you got it. Everybody has that? Are we staying on that page?
We are, Pete was here, would you like to start recreation?
All right, how's that, Pete? Okay, so playgrounds and recreation is account A7140. We have, again, with the salaries,
This is the hot seat.
the adopted budget was 34,731. Not sure what the request was by the department head, but again, I put the 2% in for full-time labor. The request was 35,773. I have the number in there at 35,426. For laborers, the adopted budget had $78,795. The request was for $81,159 in funding. I cut that back to $80,371. For rec leader, current salary is at $46,000. The request was for $47,380. I put the 2% number in there, $46,920. And same for the working supervisor. I did a 2% bump up there to a number of $31,620. Total appropriation for the point one account is $194,337, which is up almost $4,000 from last year. Under equipment, which is the point two account, we had a request for a dump trailer at $7,000 for the 2021 budget. I left that in at $7,000. There was a request for a pressure washer at $300. I left that in at $300. There was a request for a pickup and or dump truck, $25,000. I zeroed that out. If we're going to be getting the dump trailer, I thought we didn't need to have that this year. And it's certainly, quarter the price, quarter cost. Tractor, there was a request for $20,000 for a new tractor. This would replace the Heston, which everybody knows is its original life with the highway garage. Then it had another life at the recreation department, and we've gotten our money's worth out of it. Actually, has had some deterioration, which resulted in some frame damage when we were using it on the bucket loader. So I know the figure that is in the budget for $20,000 will get a certain size tractor. My personal belief is that we need something that is more of a caliber of the size of the Heston, if not larger. My preference would be approximately like a 70 horsepower tractor with category 1, category 2 hitches on it with dual hydraulics, so you can hook a dump cart to it, plug it in. There's some very good programs with some of the local dealers around here. You can get a used tractor for with about 200 hours on it, which is practically brand new. The dealership considers it brand new under warranty. You can get it for $33,000 to $2,000, and it doesn't matter what color it is. What I would like to do, I did put $30,000 in, but I would like to purchase it out of this year's budget. And I'd like to have it on the agenda for the next board meeting. We'll work on getting quotes. I'll put specs together so everybody's, putting in prices based on the same information. We'll circulate that with local dealers, see if anybody wants to bite on that. I expect it will be between $29,000 and $30,000 out of this year's budget. If you recall, we had some significant savings from Beach. We didn't have payroll down there this year. So we can get the money and take it off the 2021 budget. So what I'd like to do is zero it out for the 2021 budget buy it out of the 2020 budget this year.
And use monies out of other funds, other than
Yes,
that,
yeah.
transfer.
Yeah, we'll have to take that up when the board decides to act, either at the next meeting or a meeting after that. Does that work for everybody?
It's fantastic.
So that's a 0 there, Jeffrey. Under pneumatic tools, we had a request for $400 worth. I saved that to 300. Under in-ground grills, which I know is something that, that's a tangible improvement to the park that the public sees instantly and uses quite a bit. Request was for $800. I left that in at $800. There's a request for more, is this a push mower?
No, it was actually a walk-behind trimmer, similar to the one that we purchased for cemeteries, with several miles of fence line to trim in the park. Most of it is done with handheld trimmers. We had 3. One of them is on its last legs. So given the cost was somewhat equivalent, we would much rather have something that can save a lot of man hours and stress on our folks.
Would we not have to have the same number of employees down there?
I can't say that, but I think they could be more efficient and more productive. They could get done faster, with the work that they do, and then they could work on other projects. When it comes to all of the small equipment that you have generously put in for the 2021 budget, I would offer that we currently have $3,229.85 left in our equipment fund for this year. So the pressure washer, pneumatic tools, in-ground grills, even the walk-behind trimmer, and one other item that has recently become sort of a necessity. We could make all of the small equipment purchases out of this year's budget and be able to eliminate another $1,400 from the 2021 budget.
And I understand that, but we have, as you know, with our universal playground. I know it's a different account, but the amount of funding that we're putting in this year for recreational improvements is significant, and it is more than we had planned to do. So, under the circumstances with the finances and, it's a balancing act. My position is that I don't want to do any more on those purchases this year. I want it to come out of the 2021 budget.
And I appreciate that. I mean, to touch a little bit on the remaining monies for this year, in addition to this $32,2985 remaining in the equipment, you mentioned the beach, so there's $37,000. There's also going to be upwards of maybe $5,000 or $6,000 left in our contractual line down there at the end of this year. We also stand to save in the neighborhood of around $20,000 to $25,000 in personnel in the park this year. And I believe the number that you've put in the 2021 budget for working supervisor may be about double what it really needs to be for 2021. That position was held by Dave Jones, who is currently only working 2 days a week and has indicated that that is what he would like to continue doing going forward. So I believe what's budgeted, even though there's a 2% increase in his hourly rate, is for like a 32-hour work week year round. And it's expected to be half of that, 16 hours a week year round.
Yeah, we're gonna touch on salaries.
Okay, there is a little wiggle room in there.
Yep, and, there may be a need depending on where we go from here with the pandemic, when, more sports are occurring, more groups are using the park, may require additional employees, because we're pretty lean down there. You know, so I'm probably gonna leave that at what it's budgeted
Okay.
for now. So my recommendation is to go with the 0 for the furthermore. We did do the park improvements for the red clay dust, which we inadvertently left out. We've added the $3,600 under the .4 account. Field care fertilization, which is critical for keeping those fields. You know, we've come a long way in getting them to where they are. We had earmarked $14,000 for that for fertilization in 2020. Request was for $14,000 again this year, and I left it at $14,000. So the total contractual, we adopted the $60,000 in 2020, and that'll be $60,000 again for 2021, which was what the request is. So total appropriation total appropriation for playgrounds and recreation. The adopted budget for 2020 was $302,026. The request would have been $324,192, and I trimmed that, although it's still higher than last year, to $306,737.
That's 306, 737, so it dropped by 30, is it not?
It's gonna
Dropped by
yes.
3,600.
Up by 3,600 and then down by 30.
Yep.
So just,
Yep.
the changes need to be adjusted for that 306.
Yeah, we'll have to add the 36 back out to the,
I believe the total will be 280, 337.
yeah, good catch. Next account.
The 7310.
I'm sorry, anybody have any questions, comments on that page?
Yeah, I got one here. It's that mower that they want. You said they're going to cut back and down and stuff like that. There's always something to the market. It isn't like if we give them that trimmer, it makes more sense than the manual. That these people will be standing around doing nothing because they move on to other things. I don't think $400 is a strategy to save ourselves some now. I just want to look at it.
Well, I don't think they'd be standing around doing nothing.
No, exactly not, but I'm sure they won't be if we get them, we get them a trimmer.
If there's even the possibility that because we didn't get a piece of equipment, somebody would be standing around doing nothing, we have too many individuals working for us.
Oh, you mentioned it, you said, what would they be doing? Well, they'd be doing other things, just finding other things to do.
Well,
I
I
don't
didn't
think
say
$400 added to this budget would hurt anything. We're looking at $30,000 for a tractor, and we can find the money for that, we should be able to find $400 for a trimmer. Once again, I think ergonomically it's probably better for the employee to be going along all that fence line with a mower that's made specifically to do that type job, saving hours, saving wear and tear of the employees, that's fine, okay.
Yeah, and I didn't find $30,000 for a mower in this budget. We're buying it out in 2020. Yeah, and that's a result of COVID because we shut down town operations at the beach.
I think Peter's also made it very clear that there's money left over in this budget that could be used. We wouldn't even have to put it in next year's budget.
But I'm comfortable with the number I have in there. Anybody else have any comment on
I just had a question, it happens to be on the same topic. You got 350 over here, but you have 450 on the request.
When I made the request, that was based on 3 quotes that I had received prior to putting this together for the supervisor. I'm sorry.
This is 350, yeah.
350 is the current price right now. It's actually on sale with free shipping if we were to buy it today.
I just wanted to be clear on the question. One real question was this, if I may, real quick. When you were explaining your justification behind the walk behind trimmer.
Yes.
In fact, you said the other justifications, we also lost the weed whacker.
Yeah, so we
do about.
We had 3 weed whackers at the start of the season. One of them was giving us issues with stalling and things, and now actually has a broken piece inside that we may or may not be able to get parts to replace if it's a slightly older model that I'm not sure Echo is making anymore. If we cannot get a new one, then I would seek to use contractual money to try and repair that one for next year.
I thank you for that clarity. I agree that I also was not anxious to raise the spending. I just wanted to make sure you didn't put a weed whacker into it, or pushing for the walk behind.
No,
I think that covered.
again, yeah, we can try to make do with what we have.
Thank you for that.
Any other questions or comments?
No, so you will still have three regardless, whether it's
If
new one or two.
If we can get the parts to replace it.
What's the new total cost?
A new Echo cost, similar to the ones that we have, $299.99 was the price I saw today. Again, sometimes you can catch sales. So again, given the cost, a new one at $299.99 for handheld, and the possibility of getting a walk behind for $349.99 right now from DR, it seemed like it would make more sense to do the walk behind. The cemetery has one. It's very, it's a very good piece of equipment.
Can I request that you get back to the board outside the budget discussion on the outcome of repair of that weed whacker?
Absolutely.
Either I or the other.
Yeah, and this is one of these items that, as you heard through, this budget process, even though we budget monies for certain things, it's clear that not all that money is utilized, and it's in the thousand range. So, if we find that this is a critical piece, I think it's still going to be something we can purchase in 2021.
Would I have your blessing to see parts for the other one?
Oh, yeah. I'm all for maintaining all our equipment that we currently have, because it's useless if it doesn't work.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments on that page? No. What's the next account? A7310 youth programs. This is for personal services at the beach. First number is for senior lifeguards. The request for this budget was $12,360. I put that request in. The number for other lifeguards is $25,750. I put that number in, and these numbers incorporate changes in minimum wage, right? Right. Okay, good. So the .1 account, the request was for $38,110, which is up over the adopted amount of $37,000 for 2020, and I left that in at $38,110. Under equipment, I had a request for the disc golf equipment for $2,000. I zeroed it out because there's money in this year's budget to purchase that equipment. And I'd like to take it off the 2021 budget request if we can. Hopefully we'll be able to utilize that equipment down there.
Just to speak to that quickly, just to remind the board, we received a $1,000 grant from Stewart's that must be used before the end of the year. That will go towards the purchase of 9 baskets. Just received an updated quote. It's in the neighborhood of 2,600 total for 9 baskets. So if we utilize the 500 that's there, the $1,000 from Stewart's, we're only looking at trying to find $1,100 to $1,200 in this year's budget, which I think we can do from either contractual or personnel. So.
Okay, so just so I'm clear, so you're saying that you need money, additional funding for the golf equipment that I cut?
No, so the plan was to purchase 3 of them with the money from Stewart's.
Yeah, give me dollar amount. funds. So tell me, you requested 2,000, I zeroed it out, I said buy out of this.
Yep.
What do you need? Need anything else there?
No,
Okay,
no,
so.
we'll get it this year.
All right, so the miscellaneous, you had requested $500, and I left that in at 500, but what were you just saying, we could use that $500?
The 500 that's in the budget for 2020 can be used
Oh, okay, gotcha, all right,
in addition to the $1,000 grant,
gotcha.
which means that we'll only need to find about $1,200 elsewhere in the budget this year to pay for those 9 baskets.
So what needs to be changed
Nothing.
on this line? Nothing. Excellent. So contractual, in the adopted budget, we had $8,000. The request for 2021 was 10,000, and I scaled that back to 8,000. Total appropriation, 2020 adopted budget for the 87310 account. We had 45,500. The request for 2021 was $50,610, and in the tentative budget, I included $46,610. Any questions or comments on that? Next.
A8810, cemeteries.
$8810 cemeteries. We have for personal services, and the adopted budget, we had 5,150. The request was for 5,300. I scaled that back a little bit to 5,253, and I believe that was based on how much money was being used in 2020, and that should be sufficient. There was a request for $600 in miscellaneous. I zeroed it out, but I think there was discussion that came up as far as where the fuel was being purchased from, or where it was being billed to run the lawnmower.
Fuel is typically a contractual expense, but for 2020, the entire fuel cost for the cemeteries was taken out of the parks budget. Here is the breakdown of what was spent since we have just about concluded our work for cemeteries for the year. What I've tried to show is the personnel line, we spent 374 hours working in the cemeteries this year, and then you can see no equipment purchased, but contractual. Royce Pixley uses his own trailer and vehicle to move the mowers, so the mileage cost, gas, that was how much he used this year, but again, that was not taken out of the cemeteries in 2020. I'd like to change that in 2021. And then for the equipment maintenance, we had purchased some things this year in 2020, but we had the good fortune to be able to spend some money at the end of 2019 to get us a jump start with blades and belts and oil and things like that. So the entire amount we spent on maintenance this year is there. We had one big project that was the Griswold Cemetery fence. I've shown you what that cost the town to do. Basically, after reviewing everything that was spent this year, the minimum amount of funds that I feel we could get by within the contractual line for the cemeteries next year would be $1,000. That doesn't leave us a lot of extra room, but I think that that's reasonable to cover mileage, gas, equipment maintenance.
So that's where your request for 1,500 came from?
No, so this information wasn't available to me until recently. So at the time that this was prepared, I simply carried the $1,500 request from 2020 into 2021. I'm now much more prepared to give you realistic numbers, and we can reduce that if the board wishes down to $1,000.
This is the .4 account.
This would be the .4 that in the 2021 tentative was at 200. I'm asking that to be raised to 8.
Raised by 8 or?
Raised by $800 to 1,000.
So you were using the park budget for fuel and stuff, so we can back that out of the fuel for the fuel number for the park.
Back in the spring, I discovered that the fuel for the cemeteries has never been taken from the cemetery budget. No one in my position has ever brought it up that we know of. And at the time,
So parks, was that?
yeah, and it's a product of the way that we're billed. So the highway department will send a report and a voucher over, and it will show, if I look, which employees pump and use the gas or diesel. Until I brought it up, no one had ever said anything about who was paying for the gas.
So does Roy go to the highway garage and fill up, or
Roy,
does it go into the holding tank that?
no, Roy has a code issued by the highway department so that he can fill his machines, and he has several cans for filling small
So
equipment.
we'll bump it up to 1,000, we'll take $800 out of the rec budget, fuel budget contractual. Is that what you're saying?
No.
Well, tell me, that's what I understand it to be, so tell me what I'm missing.
The fuel required to mow cemeteries this year was $174.44. That was taken out of the park and not out of the cemetery code.
Okay.
If you wanted to reduce my $60,000 contractual line in the park by $174.44, I can probably live with that. But in order to operate and maintain the cemeteries at least the same level that we did this year, I feel that we need a minimum of $1,000 in the contractual line for the cemeteries. $200 will not even cover his mileage reimbursement.
Well, to be clear, that number was put in there based on what I have records of being spent there, so.
Understood.
You know.
Again, this information became
So we
available.
can bump it up to, I'm okay bumping it up to $1,000 for the .4 account? Is that what you're looking for?
Yes.
That works for everybody? All right, so 1,000 there. And under,
With regard to the equipment request, unfortunately, the price has now gone up, but that money was for a bagger for the X350 John Deere mower. The new cost is actually now $710. That's reflected on the equipment request sheet that I gave you. The cemetery has 2 mowers, an X300 and an X350. The X300 currently has a bagger. It's very old. Pieces literally fall off when you touch the chute. It is on its last legs. We've asked for several years to get a bagger for the 350 because that's the newer, larger machine. That machine also gets used kind of double duty over at the park. When Roy comes back to working in the park, you know, he makes his mowers
I
available.
thought the mower was purchased out of the cemetery account, is that not accurate?
The X350,
Whatever you're mowing in the cemetery.
that must have been years before I came. I could not verify that. Jeffrey may be able to verify that. We say that it's the cemetery mower. I have no idea what code it was ever purchased out of.
I'm pretty sure that was purchased for Roy for cemetery use. I'm here before.
And that,
There is a purchase of 26, 23, 18, and 2017 for a mower and bagger.
Yeah.
I'm not quite sure this one.
And we're using that as a rec now?
that would be.
So the cemetery account has the bag rec.
I'm sorry?
So the cemetery account should be built in the rec room.
So something that I've spoken at length with Jeffrey about is the fact that now that I've been brought in by the town and serving as sort of the umbrella for the park and park maintenance, playgrounds, recreation, cemeteries, the town beach, buildings and grounds. I realize that we have separate budget lines and codes, but it's all the same department. And I guess my feeling is we give and take where we need to. So the park picked up the $174.44 for gas for Roy's mower. And then when we're trying to do leaves, if we use Roy's mower, there's give and take. And I guess,
Well, I understand that, but, you know, you handed out a sheet for cemetery expenses. If we're gonna apply it one way, it's gotta be uniform across, you know, so you just said there's give and take.
if I had my way, knowing that Roy is a dual employee between parks and cemeteries, and knowing that we sometimes need to share equipment between parks and cemeteries, I would just as soon have the board eliminate the cemetery section of the budget altogether and just make it all Parks and Rec. That would simplify my life. That would simplify my ability to use my manpower and my equipment, my contractual budget. If we could merge them somehow, I don't know if that's even possible, but it gets confusing. And again, with recreation as well, sometimes it takes Jeffrey and I a little while to figure out whether it should come out of 7410 or 7140 or 7310, because it's really, at the end of the day, it's all Parks and Recreation, buildings and grounds. So,
Yeah, but that's just been recent. It was with you coming on board that we started having a broader scope of what the, you know, head of the park would be responsible for. So that's why you had a separate cemetery account.
I think the board and the town would get more bang for its buck if it was all pooled together. And I had some discretion over how it was used.
What do you mean discretion on how it's used? How do you?
Well, I just not having three separate lines and then trying to, oh, can't do that because that's cemetery and this is park and that's beach. Like, just having the flexibility is probably a better word. Having the flexibility.
Well, we can look into whether, you know, I just want to make sure that all any state requirements. I don't know, I have to look into that.
We can look into it.
All right, we'll look into that. It's a possibility. So it appears if, as we wrap up the 8810 account, the adopted budget was $6,650 for 2020. And so this year will be, I had $5,453. We're going to add $800 to that. Is that everybody's understanding? All right. Everybody okay with that? Okay.
And we will forego the bagger.
Well, my belief on baggers, that's cheap, free nitrogen, with those clippings going back into the ground. We're not maintaining any estates as a town entity, and I'd like to see that grass go into and onto the ground for fertilization.
And the leaves.
But,
And the leaves.
chop them to, maybe I didn't do this with you, but, Peter, but I had done it, I think, with most of the other department heads. I gave a synopsis of where we are financially in the town. Our sales tax revenues are going to be at 2011 levels. This budget was put together with that in mind. I know all department heads would like to see increases. Some of them are asking for what unconscionable salary increases, not the correct budget, but some of the other department heads have. And we as a board have to be cognizant of what we're facing, not only at the end of this year, but going into next year, because you will not see a rebound in sales tax going into next year. The way things are trending now, it's afraid it's going to carry the majority of next year. So, this budget was prepared with that taken into consideration.
Understood, and I should have led with my appreciation for everything that is included there, and I'm very happy overall with everything. And I'm sure that we will find a way to
I'm sure
to get through.
we will. Where we headed next?
Let's go to the very last page of reminders. That's town-wide recreational capital project HT 7180. The last yellow sheet in reminder.
Second to the last one back.
It's not in there, man.
All right, under the capital project account, HT 7180, we already, the request for the clay dust, we already took care of that in the previous account. You can see the request was for $3,600, so we can line that out to zero. For the walking trail, again, I have proposed utilizing $60,000 of that funding to construct the multi-use trail along the Hudson River off of Nome Road. It was to be done in 2020. Unfortunately, the pandemic hit, which resulted in the lack of students participating in the BOCES program, which essentially shut down all the free labor and use of equipment that would have gotten that done. This amount of money was earmarked for paving of that trail. It would have gotten us a good distance up toward the backwater, close to the closed landfill. We did receive, I think it was last 2019, we received county funding, I think of $10,000. I've applied for another $10,000, was brought up at the county board of supervisors meeting yesterday. In committee, they had originally suggested scaling that back to 75%. However, the board of supervisors collectively asked that we use open space funding to get that up to 100% of funding. So I anticipate that Monroe will be one of 11 towns that have applied for that funding, and we'll get another 10,000 on there. So if that comes through, that'll be fantastic news. The recreation roof tennis courts, the request was for $5,000. I left that at $5,000. Field changes, rec leader had requested $6,000. I left that in at $6,000. The equipment barn, the request was for $15,000. I bumped that up to $35,000 just because, having built pole barns as recently as last year, to get one the size that we'll need to get our equipment under cover and protected from the elements as well as the public, you're probably more realistic at a number of $35,000. And the Sandbar Beach bathhouse roof, the request was for $5,000. I left that at $5,000. So the total appropriation request, the adopted budget for 2020 was $121,000, but as everyone knows, we didn't do that work. So that money was still there. The request was for $94,600, and I bumped that up to $111,000 for use of the capital reserve fund, the HT 7180. Any questions on that?
Happy with all that. Just one quick question. Jay, we moved to 3,600. Why can we take that in here? Why don't we move it to another account?
We couldn't, I think we couldn't use it out of here because that's not a capital.
That's what, thank you.
You couldn't leave it to that.
Thank you.
Okay,
Any other questions, comments? Where else?
I believe we're done with Pete, unless there's something else.
Everything else for us?
No, I did give Jeffrey a few thoughts on buildings and grounds items for next year? This building, the annex building, I think you reviewed that already, maybe during the supervisor's portion. We'll keep doing what we can do.
Yep, thank you very much. Appreciate everything you're doing down there for us, and hopefully we'll have more available to the public for use of our facilities. Oh, I do want to add, I was approached today by a real estate agent out of Albany that's representing the owner of 54 acres right next to the property we purchased last, next to the rec. Want to know if the town would be interested in it. I returned his call, but I didn't hear back. So there's an opportunity there for another 54 acres. Out on Fairwood Road, going toward, yeah. So in the past, we've utilized this funding for that kind of a purchase. You know, that'll be obviously a board discussion, negotiation. That may change how we use some of this, depending on where we want to go, but you know, that's down the road. But I want to make the board aware that I did have that call today.
Thanks.
Thank you, appreciate it. Where we headed next, Jeffrey?
So we are going to look on Jesse Fish for water sewer at 7, and we have the transfer station coming at 7:30. I haven't spoken yet, but we do have all the lighting districts in here. I don't personally feel it's necessary to go through each one. Most of these are based off of National Grid rates and things like that. But if you'd like to do that, we can.
Yeah, the numbers are on the front page for as far as what the rates are, which are the same as last year. So what we did is we extrapolated using the same numbers, the same rate for last year. We plugged in numbers for what those lighting districts would cost. You can see that, let's see, we've got Meadow Ridge Lighting District. We've got 1,200 in there, same as last year. Paletti Lighting District, 2,800, same as last year. Palmerton Heights Lighting District, we actually dropped that 100. Why did we do that? Do we have like a fund balance or something?
We did not drop it. That's using a little bit of fund balance, but it's the same number as last year. So if you look on the back of that one single page you got there, you can see the 2020 adopted budget.
Yep.
Those numbers on the tax side, you know, it's a use tax. It's not a.
Yeah, we used some of the fund balance, as you can see through there, just to modify those down a little bit for that year. And let's see, Palmerton Heights is at 5,400. Pinewood Lighting District is at 3,400. Riverview Lighting District is at 3,400. And we were using $100 in fund balance for that as well. And the Sherwood Forest Lighting District was the same as last year, 3,500. And Tanglewood Lighting District, we used $200 in fund balance. So last year we anticipated a cost of $1,700. This year it would be $1,500. We'll be raising that user fee of $62.5. And Woodscape 2 Lighting District, same as last year, 4,200, and the final Woodscape Lighting District is the same as last year, $5,600.
The other miscellaneous topics are the industrial park, which is just a small amount if something needs to be fixed or if there's signs that need to be put up or what have you. That number would come straight out of fund balance. There's no income in that account. That's just been a number that's been placed there so that there can be spending down the road.
Right. For example, I asked Pete to have a sign made that we can post at the entrance to the park saying no hunting, no target practicing, no ATVs or other or recreational vehicles down there. I did ask him to implement security measures Regarding that signposting. So that money would
Better with the camera there.
So.
Other than that, I think we've covered all of the major categories, all the big categories that we normally would discuss.
Can you call Jesse, see if, oh, he's coming at 7, right?
He's coming at 7.
All right, so why don't we can do transfer station. Ted doesn't need to be here for transfer station, does he? Is he planning on coming? I never got confirmation he was coming.
He told me that he was, I could give him a call and tell him.
Yeah, have him stop over now. If he wants to be, if not, we'll just run through it now.
All right, want to take a break or will I give him a call?
We'll just stand at ease, you can leave it on. Actually, we can have discussion, or we can come back and start a discussion on salaries if you want. Keep things moving.
What's that?
Split agreement school.
I would say okay, well.
Yes, how are you?
That's good. Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
That's the hot seat there.
Go for it. What are you telling me, John? Do you want that job?
Pardon? How are you?
All right, that's okay. As long as it's fiscally conservative. So is.
They tried to give your seat up, and I ain't gonna say who.
I don't want.
What do you think? We'll start as soon as Jeff gets, he's making a phone call to the transfer station staff. Well, we'll give you the, I've been giving department head just a brief thumbnail sketch of town finances, what we do with the budget. So we'll just start with that while we're waiting for Jeffrey to return. This budget here globally adds a penny to the tax rate per assessed thousand. We reduced appropriations if you take out the library by over 19%. A lot of that is a result of our sales tax revenue projection being dramatically lower. I know as far as your accounts are concerned, sales tax doesn't impact that because it's usually based. So back in 2020, our appropriations were just over $9 million, and what I did is eliminate just over $1.7 million in spending. So this budget here is right around just over $7 million. We tweaked it a little bit. We'll have those numbers by the time this process is over, what we need them to be. You know, we've been fortunate that we got awarded certain state grants, one for the universal playground, one for the highway garage roof repair. Unfortunately, the state has put their thumb on that, so you know, we had to make adjustments in this year's budget. But you know, we got all that work done. It's paid for, and should that money become available, we'll be able to slide it into the fund balance. So that's just where the town budget is right now. Pay we put in for individuals, we put in a 2% increase for placeholders, but we're gonna have a conversation about that at the end of this meeting tonight, so we can wrap up the budget. So with that, Jeffrey has returned, and we'll go into water. Which account do you want to start with, Jeff?
So water has its own section, if you
Yeah.
want to just head straight to the summary sheet that's in front of that. I do have one note about water, when it comes to salary. I was using last year's adopted number for Christian instead of what was actually put in the organizational meeting.
Oh, right.
So that number you see there for the 2021 tentative, that's 38,869. That should actually be increased to 42,300.
With the corresponding 2% increase that for everybody else. So that's 42,300.
Yes.
And
Do I have a summary sheet?
Here you go.
Okay, good. Thank you. What I don't. Sorry.
so we'll run down through the list, starting with equipment. And in 2020 adopted budget for the radio read master meters, we had $27,250. The request this year was for the same amount. I scaled that back to $17,250. Under miscellaneous equipment, the adopted budget, we had $6,350 there. The request was $6,500. However, I think based on the amount of money that we used that account, it wasn't very high, so I put it in at $1,000. Do you know what we used year to date there?
No, I don't have that. I can go pull that.
All right, I'll just keep going, and if you want to grab that. There's a request in there for more in trailer, and in 2020 we had earmarked $1,200. I believe that was just for the trailer, and so Jesse had requested $1,800 for the mower.
For the trailer. We haven't bought the trailer yet.
Oh, okay. And it went up 600.
The reason being is because the 1,200 doesn't cover it. Because of the price of everything going up after everything hit this spring, we're looking at, you know, considerably more money. So unless we can transfer money out of what I've got left in meters or something this year, I can't afford to do that.
Okay, so I zeroed that out. The plate compactor, Jesse had requested $750 for that. I left that in at $750. The 4.2 account, the request was for $36,300. I scaled that back to $19,000. Under contractual, I didn't have any numbers for you from that, Jessica. We didn't get any numbers for like the water maintenance, insurance, or what we did is I extrapolated what I thought they might be based on the bills for 2020. And so for BAS, I put that, you know, that's a flat rate. We know what that's going to be. It it was $1,500 adopted 2020. I put that in the same $1,500. Insurance for equipment, vehicle liability, in the adopted budget last year was $9,109. I bumped that up to $11,801 based on anticipated costs. Water tower painting, I think you got me that number, it was at $185,000. So I plugged that in the tentative budget. This would be for Nolan Road, right? Or no,
No, you're painting Macro, the big tower,
yeah, behind.
back of the highway garage.
So total contractual in the adopted budget for 2020 was $581,285. For the 2021 budget, I have $592,911. And did we able to find those numbers? If we back up to the equipment, Jesse had request for miscellaneous equipment of $6,500. What did we spend year to date there?
So I can break down to his total spending over all the equipment.
Okay,
And that total spending for the year thus far, as of September 30th, is $10,800.
okay. So that's why I reduced that down. So one of the things, which I don't think we have included in here, is for purchasing capacity for additional water. This is something we need to look at. And as the board recalls, out of this year's budget, we were able to buy $106,000 in additional capacity to give us some breathing room. One of the things that we need to do and has never been done, and I don't know why it never got done this way, is when we have people purchasing, doing taps, with the tap fees, there's monies figured into that for capacity. And all that money has been thrown into one account. So we don't have now a reserve account for capacity. And I think we need to take a look at that. And I think if you read in the recommendations for the consolidation report that came from the Burge Group, that was one of their strong recommendations, so that we know how much money is there. As necessary, we can go and buy that capacity using money that was paid specifically for that purpose. And we're not doing that now, so we have to look at that. Do you have anything else in water you want to touch on? Jesse, what about, do you have anything to add to what we just ran down?
Let me get this straight. We're cutting that trailer out. We can't get a trailer for that more, right?
I don't have money in there for that right now, no.
Was the plan to get it out of this year's budget, that you're short because the price went up, is that what you're saying?
Well, the price has gone up on them. I have money in the budget this year. I'm sure that there's money in equipment, but
You have 3 quotes.
pardon me?
The number that we put in for last year was the number that was provided to us, so $1,200. That's why that number, I don't know.
Yeah, you're not gonna buy a trailer anymore for $1,200. It'll fit that.
I'm just telling you where that number came, I didn't. make it up.
No, I'm not saying that. The number, the $1,200 we put in for lead for this year, but like I said, unfortunately, with the way things went, you can't buy a trailer for $1,200 now. It's just like your building materials and everything else is taking such a huge jump that you can't buy it for that.
So
So if there's more money left in equipment somewhere, if I could add a couple $100 or whatever I could find to it, if I could find a used one that was in good shape that I knew that was going to foot the bill for us, that would be fine. I don't have a problem with that either.
So
What we've been using is mine. I've used mine for the last 3 years, hauling my personal trailer, hauling stuff around and whatnot with it, so.
Do they have money in other equipment accounts?
So you need $400 more somewhere for this year.
We do have the money, but it's kind of dependent. I know that you were thinking about purchasing more water meters before the end of the year as well.
the supervisor put money in the budget for next year for water meters, correct?
Yeah,
Between now and the end of this year, I believe I have enough water meters to take care of what I have to do.
so did you spend the amount that we approved?
No,
So.
no, we had some meters and we've been, so far they've lasted us.
I cut like $10,000 of meters with the anticipation that you're gonna buy more this year, that's why.
We can do that.
So, if you wanna take it, I'm okay if you wanna take it out of there, and what's the board's pleasure on it?
No, so I'd rather get the trailer this year, I don't really want to be using his personal trailer. And it doesn't have to be next year's budget, and then get the rest of the meters with whatever.
I'll shop around and get some prices on it and I'll come back to the board and let you know what I can do with it.
Sound good?
If I can get up, if I can say, if I can find one used, it's in good shape, then, I'll go with that, but,
Just I can try to find something else.
pardon me?
Try to find a new trailer.
Okay.
Yeah. It's gonna have some longevity. Anything else on the water sewer summary sheet?
Sewer, we talked about at one time about upgrading those pumps down there because we had a pump that went bad. We got it, we had another one on standby. That one we put in and it didn't last a couple of months, if you remember right. I took pictures of a bolt that came through the side of it for some reason. We took it back out, we sent it back down to the place so that they could figure out whether it came from inside or what the situation was. In the meantime, they had rewound the other pump that had crapped out on us. And we got that back in and got the station up and running so that we had two pumps alternating again. We still have one pump that sits down, the Troy pump, that they want $4,000 to fix that.
I don't remember seeing that request in the sewer. You have that in the budget?
Nope, I don't have it in there.
So,
It's just something that we talked about, and I just want to make, if you want to go ahead with it, to something like that, then you're looking at, I know that you're looking at about $12,000, around $12,000 per pump. The pumps that we got, they don't make anymore. They can get repair kits for them still. They are able to rewind them and put them back together for us, but there's going to come a time that, and they've been in there since 1992, 3, whatever year that they built that station down there.
would that be under sewer 1, or would that
That would have to be under sewer.
be sewer 1?
Yeah, the GI account.
Should I get 110? We can go through that. Well, anybody have any other questions?
That's the high end of it, would be 12 grand. We should be able to install them pumps ourselves.
Everybody good on the water sewer summary sheet page? All right, so we'll go to GI 8110. Talk about salaries later. Under equipment, riding board and trailer, request for $270. You had 180 adopted. So did you buy that one? More? Isn't that what the trailer?
We already have them more.
So,
We bought it 2 years ago.
so what was the $180 for the adopted budget for a trailer? You had requested 270, we didn't spend it, so I zeroed it out. So I guess I need clarification on
What account are you in now?
GI 8110, sewer one.
Riding on trailer.
That was the trailer part of it. That $180 that was adopted last year was the trailer part of the mower and the trailer.
Okay.
Because we didn't have the trailer, but we had the mower.
So you had 1,200 in the other account, you got almost 200 here, you're getting closer to it, right?
Well, that's not another account. So that summary sheet is literally,
Oh, so the summary is lead. Oh, okay, I got
Yeah, we only budgeted, what, $1,200 for the whole year for the trailer, correct?
you. Yes.
Total, all accounts,
So
divided amongst,
all right.
divided amongst all accounts because the sewer uses that also from that year.
So that we don't, these are all incorporated in the summary page, so unless the board wants to go through the individual accounts. All right.
But it doesn't bring us back if you want to have a conversation about the pump.
Yeah, so, obviously, especially with anticipated increased flow coming up here, within the next 24 months, that's something that we probably want to consider having.
Can I ask you a question, just to make sure I understand it? Currently, we have 2 pumps out of a failover, and 1 pump that's on the shelf somewhere, right there.
Right.
So we have 2 working pumps.
Right.
We have no shelf-ready backup failover,
Not right now, we don't.
and that's your request, to your point that you were bringing up.
Well, we need to, you should have a backup pump, because here's the thing, if one of them 2 goes down, now you're running on one leg.
And I agree with
God forbid if something happens to that one, you're gonna have a pumper truck there from IBS or someplace like that that's gonna be costing you hundreds of dollars a day just to pump the effluent out of there, because we don't have a bypass on that system down there. And there should have been, when that was designed and put in down there should have been a bypass put on it, so that you could take a pump and put it outside there and run the effluent from that pit into the main and send it. And there's no way we can do that.
And the pump is down for repair, and the estimate is 4,000 to repair. And your suggestion is that we consider getting a new pump and not invest in this older pump because they're hard to get parts for.
If you could get a new pump to stick on the shelf to sit, then fine. Here's the thing you gotta understand, when you put new pumps on the shelf, the warranty starts when you buy the pump.
You can put it in service and one or the other.
When you put it in, and it's not when you put it in service.
When you buy it.
So down the road, I mean, that pump might sit there. This last time, the pump that we got repaired sat on the shelf for almost 5 years. And
I just want to understand it. That's where I was going. I think we need to address it.
Yeah, I didn't get any paperwork on it, that's why it's not in the budget, but I'm happy to address it now.
I will definitely get you some.
Well,
I mean, I just wanted to, I wanted to make you aware of what it was going to cost. And if it's something you want to try to go ahead with, I'll make sure you get the
Well,
paperwork.
we don't want to buy it until we have to. What's the turnover or something like that? Like, by the time you order it, we get it done.
A year ago, probably a couple of months. Now, I can't tell you that. I can tell you when I get the paperwork for you. I'll have to ask them what it's going to take.
So there's a several month lag between ordering it and getting it?
There's going to be a lag between it. They're going to have to build it. Or if they have to build it, if they don't have them sitting on the shelf, they got to put them together.
When are we going to have a backup back?
As soon as I'm approved to go ahead and let them do it.
And will that be part of the 2020 budget expenditure, right?
That would be part of this year's budget.
Budget money in this year for that? Because I thought that was an emergency repair.
It is.
Yeah, I don't remember having that money in this year's budget.
We do not. Well, we can pull money from the contractual account and put it into equipment. Right now, we have remaining in GI 8010
Oh, I got it.
for.
It's contractual anyways, isn't it? A repair?
Oh, repair would be.
It's a repair, the repair we're talking about, correct?
So-
Getting that other pump repaired and getting it back on the shelf.
So that 592,000, that almost 593,000 contractual, that's what emergency repair would come out of for next year, right? If we needed that pump.
Sort of. So this would be a just sewer expense, right? Or is this a sewer?
No, just sort.
Just sewer. So you have to actually look at the GI page to see the number there. You can't use the aggregate of every.
So then we have to add that number on the total contraction that we're talking.
Well, just in the GI account alone, you
Just
have
in the GI
contractual,
alone.
you have contractual money left.
What do we have left
We got $91,300 this year,
right now?
Right now,
as of 9/30.
So we're good.
well, we're good for the repair, or we're good for the purchase. It depends on what you want to do. I wasn't sure.
So the problem is that you just indicated, you go ahead and order it, buy it, the warranty starts. It'll be sitting on the shop, so you want to put it in? Want to put it in this year?
We don't need them. We don't need it this year. If you want to put it in this year, we
Well.
can get them here. Will they get in this year? No.
I'd much rather have it come out of the 2020 budget versus the 2021 budget.
And then take these other two pumps out and leave them on the shelf for repair, for
Yeah, 'cause
backups.
There's no warranty on them.
No.
I think that'd be proactive, maintenance. And what's the word?
Well, with the sewer coming, we need to address it if we have the ability to pull it out of the unencumbered balance still sitting in that GFI account, I would.
So why don't we do that?
Not to downplay it or anything, but also you got to remember that industrial park down there has gone from running a lot, we'll say, to if that runs 10, 15 minutes a day, it runs a long time now. They're not pumping, they're not doing much at that factory.
I will tell you that that's not that particular project, but that flow is going to change dramatically within the next 10 months.
Well, if there's somebody coming to that park, what they need to do is they definitely need to have a design within themselves for a meter that we can read, because everything runs to that sewer station. You can read the effluent that leaves that sewer station, but you can't divide it between different places that's flowing into there. There's no way of telling. And right now, the design that's at Hexion isn't the proper design to have in there. They're not registering everything that is going through that meter down there.
Well, we need to get on top.
We're registering it. They're not. So, I mean, we definitely have to have something, because if you get something designed in there that's not counting it properly, then what's going to happen is you're not going to get your revenue for what you're actually sending to Glens Falls.
So it sounds like, the board's going to give you the green light if you want to take care of that this year.
I'll get some prices and I'll get it to the board here. Try to get it before the next meeting.
Thank you.
Good, thanks.
Thank you.
Anything else on the sewer? Water district? So we go to the next one, what, 8310? Water?
You covered
What is
all
summary
of
sheet?
it. Summary sheet.
All right. Do you have anything else to add, Jason? Comments?
No. The only thing I'd like to do is I'd like to see that the board consider, the town gives us, we're able to purchase shirts, we're able to purchase a sweatshirt, things like that with the logo on it and stuff. People know who we are. Other entities, the people that work for them, they got clothing allotment and they have a boot allotment. We do require that, that our people wear steel-toed shoes. So it would be nice for us to supply a pair, enough money to purchase a pair of them every year for
So
our employees.
What's that?
A reimbursement voucher or something along those lines.
Yep.
We can take that up.
There's different places do different things. I've got a list of different stuff that some of the other places do. And it'll range anywhere from, the village gives their employees $60 for pants, which is nothing, because, a pair of pants are $40, $50 for a decent pair of work pants. And, but just the same, it's something. And they give them $175 boot allotment. And then it goes to the other end where the village of Hudson Falls gets them $500 clothing allotment, $190 boot allotment every year. So there's different, obviously there's different things. Anything would help.
Any other questions, comments from the board? Thanks a lot, Jesse. Appreciate you coming in.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Take care.
Come on up, Ted.
Get the hot seat.
It's cool down now.
Transfer station is its own section. It's the TS account. And we can start with TS 8160, because there's nothing budgeted in contingent.
Yes, our code. There's an also pretty good look at that.
So far, everything.
Awesome. Everybody's happy, all of our customers are happy.
That's all right.
No, wait a minute. You're pushing the envelope. As far as the leaves and the brush, like I said, we did 300 last month. We're not getting those big dump trailers anymore.
Good, that's good. That's good. All right, we're all ready to go here, so keep things moving. I just want to give you a breakdown on the budget that the town budget, we reduced appropriations by just over 19%. A lot of that is in relation to the downturn in the economy, which resulted in over $500,000 reduction in sales tax. And we're projecting numbers for next year conservatively to be right around the numbers we had for sales tax in 2011, almost 9 years ago. So that's right around 2.8. So this budget was put together being cognizant of that. The tentative budget essentially cut spending from last year by about $1.7 million. So those are should be taken into consideration as we go through these numbers. Your situation is a little bit different. It's a user fee-based account, so it doesn't have an impact from sales tax, which I guess is good news for you.
Yeah.
So under the laborers for personal services, we're going to be talking about those individually later on tonight, but I plugged in a 2% increase over last year. We have earmarked $2,000 for security cameras. We had them in the adopted budget for 2020. We just didn't get it done. I don't know if we have timing wise.
We got a good chance to get it.
Oh, we do? Okay. So we're going to, I'm going to leave that in if the board agrees at 2,000, just in case we don't get to it.
Okay.
For 2020. Total contractual, we have, the request was for 135,000. I left that at 135,000. And that's all we have for transfer station.
How about the roof and the,
So for 2021, the contractual figure includes repairs to the roof at the transfer station. So we've got that.
okay, you allotted me money for coats for the winter coats for the workers.
I don't know if
Last
we have
year.
a line item for that, but
It was approved last year.
contractual, we in the adopted budget last year were just over 83,000, and now you're up to 135,000. So, I think you can include that on contractual.
I also approved it last year.
I think it was approved late. I didn't get them last year because I almost think it was like in January or something, when you said I could get them. I don't have that paperwork with me.
Weren't we doing the whole coat order kind of at the same time when it was for rec and highway and then transfer station at the same time? So
I thought so, but I don't know how that worked out.
you remember that?
I
did.
And the owner, you know, details of it.
And then, because I remember we discussed the fact that they were to be more network, you know, report working out in the public and things.
Yeah, we got a resolution on that, I know that.
Yeah, so if there's money,
There's money this year.
spend time between now and the end of the year.
Go take care of that. But, you know, I know that there was a order put out for no unnecessary expenses. And
Yeah, and what I've said to everybody, you know, department heads, if you have a pressing need, you know, just send me an email on it, and I'll be happy to review it. Okay, but if it's something that I think is necessary.
Well, so this was probably not necessary, but it's coming up where it should be addressed.
Yeah,
Um,
so, yeah, that's fine, I don't have a problem with that. Just get us, you know, something to approve at the board level. Unless it's underneath the threshold for expenses or expenditures, and I'll just give it a green light.
And I also think our conversation talked about almost using the same vendor for all three, and they were just going to be more generic, like town of Monroe, as opposed to doing specific departments, right? I think that was what we talked about.
A lot of work, and with the billion, and the other departments who's working.
Yeah.
So I would think if you will reach out to them.
Yeah, check with Pete, I think he did the order for some of his guys.
They got them at, that place on Bluebird Road.
That's our
Yeah, that should
I
be.
think they were like $100 or something.
Yeah, there's money in the budget, I mean, there's some money in contractual that'll cover
Into the next year's contractual.
that. And next year's contractual, yes. Well, we have a total, I bumped up total contractual from 83 to 135,000. But I think there's no money in this year's budget for it.
We have maxed out the transfer station.
Oh, okay, so then you have to do it in January then.
Now may not be the time, but it looks like when you say maxed out, like all gone, I mean, we got 4 months left there, so.
Right, so what we'll be doing moving forward is increasing our appropriations based on the amount of revenue we're receiving. Most of the contractual that does come out of transfer station is pulls and weight to actually transfer the refuse. So we just see an uptick this year in that.
Okay.
So just want to make sure we're clear, we're talking about that next year's budget.
So
it's not.
So we're not getting it this year.
No, it's got to be January.
January, because it sounds like we don't have enough room
I'll work with Ted and we'll see what we can do.
there. Yeah, we can find it on this year, I prefer to get it this year, but, you know, it sounds like we're really tight, depending on what Jeffrey finds, it's either gonna be this year or early part of next year, January.
But you got a green light to do it. Okay,
Okay.
Anything else in the transfer station? Anything else for us, Ted?
No, I guess the security cameras, I don't know who was in there stealing stuff, but we had like 14 batteries in the thing. Nobody stole them on us. So I think they've been around again.
Oh, out of the recycling center,
Oh yeah, they were coming and stealing those for a while.
so they hopping over the fence to get them?
No, it's been a while since they've come in there.
Well, we'll get some security cameras up there sooner rather than later, and hopefully, that'll deter that from happening.
I hope so.
Okay?
Yep.
Any, board members have anything for Ted? Anything else? All right, thanks a lot, Ted, appreciate you coming in.
You're welcome.
Good seeing you, sir.
Where are we now?
Alex?
So, is that the last thing? Do we
Unless
have,
there's something else that someone wants to review.
does anybody want to get any other?
I just have a question, just for my knowledge, should do his courts not invited in or chose not to come?
They chose not to.
Got the revenues down there from that. So everybody, as far as, is there anything you want to revisit before we do this out? Talk
about suggestions.
I know, I didn't think of the night when the emergency squad was here that we could revisit, but I don't think we'd really be able to cut too many places to come up with anything more at this point for them and their building rights and things, because they kind of requested $5,000 more. And I said, I don't think it's a bit, we had that, I can't remember what we did. I don't think there was any real spot where we could, yeah, I thought the state if you gave them many more, so.
Yeah, I think I'd like to leave it as it is right now.
My only concern is that we have multiple things where we send people off to go get them out of this year's budget. We just need to follow up on those people who said they would, because.
Well, they don't just say money.
Well, fair point, but some of them needs to be, sound like we have, so.
Well, we gave them direction, so hopefully it was followed. All right, so, we have the salary sheets here.
So the salary schedule is in front of the general tab. There's 3 pages devoted to the salaries.
So, the things that remained, and hopefully we can wrap up tonight, we've got to determine as a board, what you want to send to the county and the sales tax, if anything. We have to set elected officials' pay, which we'll do by resolution. Just made an agreement tonight, and what you want to do with that, we'll do it at the next board meeting. When's that have to be done?
Next board meeting.
So next board meeting, we'll have to have that resolution. Let's see. Be 1, 2, 3 pages of salaries and hourly wages for our current town employees. As I said, I put 2% in across the board for a starting point in the conversation. One of the things I'd like to do, if the board's in agreement, I'd like to set aside like $15,000 for the possibility of having an employee evaluation program that can be conducted within the first 6 months of 2021, with the possibility, if the board is in agreement on a particular evaluation, where there's money set aside that could go to for some kind of a compensation, whether it's a one-shot check, it's a percentage increase in their pay, but that will give us some flexibility to, in time to evaluate our employees. At this time, I think at some point we should have a step system for all the different classifications of employees we have. As everyone knows, it has always been, it's whatever the board's pleasure up until this point. I was involved as a board member where we did percentages, and as you know, the more you're currently making, the higher your raise would be based on percentages. And we took that into consideration, and I came up with recommendations in a couple of years where people who were below a certain salary, we gave them a flat dollar amount increase that made it a little more fair, because obviously, if you're, let's take 20,000 for example, you get 2% on that versus somebody who's making 30, 40,000. There's a big discrepancy in your raise. So we tried to offset that in previous years when we had really low salaries, and it wasn't perfect, but it helped individuals that weren't making as much. So I thought, my recommendation, it's open for discussion, is to go to 2% across the board. I can tell you that there are many municipalities that are not only not giving raises. Saratoga County's budget's not going to have raises for employees, for any of their employees. It's going to remain flat. There's municipalities that are cutting positions with Saratoga Springs. They're eliminating positions. Albany County's eliminating positions. We're fortunate in the way I think this budget is structured that we're able to keep our employees, and not only keep them, but assist them with the cost of living increase at the 2%. And if we earmark some additional monies, that gives us the opportunity to make adjustments based on a well thought out plan going into 2021. I'm just throwing that out there for discussion. I don't know what everyone thinks about that.
I like the idea, I just want to make sure that I understood it. We're talking about employee evaluation, performance evaluation.
Performance.
And then some sort of individual compensation. based on the
Yeah,
outcome.
there's a recommendation on that, and that's something that, the personnel committee could start with, and then obviously it's going to require an action by the full board to make any kind of change down the road. But we don't have that ability if we do a flat 2% now, and that's it, we don't have any increases. So, I'm not saying we have to use that, I'm not saying we have to do it, but it gives you options.
It's not there, we can't do it.
Yeah, so.
Have you accounted for that 15,000 in here yet?
We have not. That ties into the conversation on what we're doing with sales tax for the county. I think, and again, we don't know what we're going to get. We do know it's going to be a lot less. And, I've always been a strong advocate of sending something back to the county. That's been coming down each year. We're the only town in the county that does that. But unfortunately, we're required to let the county know for, I think it's the end of this month, if not sooner. I think we have a board meeting before then. So if we decide to retain that money with the possibility that we're not going to have excess, I think that you could take that 15,000 from anticipated sales tax.
A couple of questions if I could. Jeffrey, have you had any running total in your head now before we start talking about adding anything else with the adds and changes, the adds and minuses we've done throughout the exercise of tonight's? Where are we at? Are we already talking about having to consider tables? So right now, just also part two of that question, right now where we stood was 200 going to the county, correct?
Correct.
So you have a running total in your head, the impact of decisions we made over the two sessions?
I don't have an exact number. I would say that we have increased the budget by a small amount, because for the most part, things were kept the same between the tentative and what's going to be the preliminary.
Well, what we can do is, we don't have to decide that tonight, but we will have to decide at the board meeting. Jeffrey can plug in the changes for the preliminary budget. Board members can get those changes. We'll know exactly what the changes from the tentative budget. Board members can think about what you want to do with sales tax. Think about whether you want to do that. Well, actually, we kind of need to know whether the board wants to do that 15,000 tonight, so it can be plugged into the budget, because it has to be accounted for across the various accounts.
In my running total in my head, it felt like we were pretty even, because we had some get to minuses that we're going to take out of this year's budget. We had some adds. Were you looking for each board member's opinion on what we should do? Your question specifically just on the 15K.
I guess my question is on the 15K now.
My opinion is to put it in, let's run the numbers and see where it stands, and we can make a final decision if we don't get back. That's my position.
John, you okay with that?
I'm okay with that. My question is, he's talking about sending money back to the county. How is that an advantage? What do we, as a town, get outside that money?
Yeah, so what happened, yeah, so when the town sends sales tax back to the county, it's taken off the tax liability, the county tax liability globally for the town residents. So if that money is not available to be taken off the number that they come up with what town road residents owe for county tax, they will have to account for that. The good news is that because of the way the budget was structured over the past two years, when we eliminated the fire protection tax, that had a direct, tangible impact on our residents' finances because that saved our community, residential taxpayers, over $1.2 million so far. And that's a lot of money. I mean, we don't even raise that in our total town tax. And that, so that's helping. So, I think we've been very helpful the past several years to our taxpayers. Obviously, we want to do all we can. But, just in the preceding 2 years, there's been a huge savings on that, on the fire protection tax. So you may want to take that into consideration when you're considering whether you want to send that money to the county, continue to do so or not. I would add that if there ever was a year, because we don't know that we're going to have extra sales tax, so we kind of have to decide before we know. So that kind of puts us out there a little bit. It's a crapshoot. We may not have 200 to send to the county, we don't know, but historically, like the last year, we sent 300 back. But anyway, we don't have to decide it tonight, but we will have to decide and take a vote at our next board meeting. So it's probably good that the whole board has an opportunity to look at the preliminary budget that is put together now that we've made some massages to it. And maybe you can make a more informed decision based on what we're seeing.
I think it'll be pretty close.
So, and we will also have to do a resolution by law of what the elected officials pay is going to be.
So on the topic of the 15th, did we go all the way around?
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah, did you guys have a feeling one way or another on 15?
I'm okay with putting it in, like I've heard before, and reevaluating when we get back to where we are with our additions and subtractions. So I'm okay with accounting for it tonight to review it again before the final.
Okay.
I would concur.
So for council member Donahue's benefit, because we've all been through the budget process. So what happens now by law is we present the preliminary budget to the public for a public hearing. We can't change anything in that once we completed the preliminary budget. However, by law, we can change based on public input. We can change the budget by 10%, maximum 10%. And that's something that we would do after receiving public comment, closing the public hearing. And then it'll be up to the board to either adopt a budget as is, make changes based on public comment. It'll be up to us. Anything else that you need for tonight?
Did we want to talk about Howard then next?
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah, so, sorry about that. So I had plugged in the 2%, are you talking about elected officials now, or just in general?
You can break it up into two different.
Yep, I'm ready to
Take
take
it
it.
in, make sure we have it all done here tonight.
Yeah, no, so I put in the tentative budget at 2% across the board, whether you're salary or hourly. We do have probably a little bit higher bump up where we need to be within the minimum wage increase.
So you'll apply the minimum wage and then did the 2%,
I think we did the 2%.
and then apply.
You're right, what did we do?
We did the 2%, the 2% did not reach $12.50, which is what it'll be next year, and we increased it to $12.50.
That's right.
Okay.
I don't know if it makes a difference for numbers wise, but I think you still have a assessor's clerk on this page down here in the bottom corner. Is that?
That we changed that.
Yes, so we changed it on the other sheets, and I'll change it on this as well. I can't change the tentative number.
Okay.
I have to change everything going forward from September 30th, I have to put on the preliminary line.
Yeah.
So it will be reflected.
Okay.
Yeah, because I think I pointed out, we had a range for hiring for that position, it was like 40 to 45. And inadvertently, when we put the budget together, we based the 2% on the 45, I think, which, we hired around 40, I think. Right? So,
My position, others can speak for themselves, I'm very comfortable with 2% across the board, especially in the circumstances that we're living today. I know a lot of employers in public and private sector, the people don't have jobs. So to have a good structured budget that protects our taxpayers, some increase and be able to still take care of our town employees, I'm a fan of that. I will asterisk that by commenting on the deputy's clerk, on the clerk's request, not the deputy clerk's request. It's honorable that she's offering to do that. My personal opinion, that's a slippery slope. I'm not comfortable with it. It could cause problems across the total town, where other town employees might not look at their department heads. I just think that's a slippery slope. So I appreciate the clerk's offer. And I think it's a generous one, but I'm not a fan. Okay. So that's my position.
Any comments?
I think, I know in the past you said, you give the rate, you give the 2% or whatever, maybe to everybody or to nobody. And I think, again, some of the folks that have quite a few more years doing what they do here than say I do, I think they would appreciate that 2% as well. So just want to add it in there on the record.
Okay.
I'm good.
Yeah, 2%, I realize we're in a tough position this year as far as revenues and stuff. But there was two salaries that really stood out to me. One's a highway superintendent and the other is the water superintendent. I know when we hired a new assessor a couple of years ago, we brought back money where it should be. That 2 years was way too low. And these people should get paid for their expertise and what they do. I mean, these two men here, these two people, I think the salary, maybe not for what, especially the water department, an increase, but I think we have to get them all to what they deserve. These men are, well, the highway department's the biggest department. I'm called 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, something happens. Same thing with water department. We've got help down there, but Jesse's the one who's in control of the entire thing 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. And I think that we have to work, and like I said, this year isn't years of the raises, I realize that. But I was just wondering if we couldn't start this year to maybe bump those guys up, maybe give them 5% this year. I know it's more than twice what I know, 2%. But I would like to get them back up to where, to a salary that I believe is, is equal to the job and the responsibilities that these people have. So that's all. Like I said, this isn't the year. I know this isn't the year to bring something like that up, but certainly not a big amount, but maybe a little more than we've already got.
Great, thank you for those comments. Anything else for Steve? So do you have anything else that you need? So for the next board meeting, we'll have, if the board's okay with elected officials, you're okay at this time, that'll be majority okay, being able to adopt that at the next board meeting. All right, so we'll get that to you, that resolution to you at a time. Like we will need to know what we want to do sales tax at that board meeting. And hopefully it'll be more informed after we get that budget too. We'll see the unofficial preliminary for review and then become.
Correct, it's the draft preliminary.
Draft. Yeah.
We'll have the full one ready for the public hearing. And speaking of the public hearing, the next board meeting is on the 27th. We have to tell the CoStar on the 28th what the date of our public hearing is going to be, what the salaries of the elected officials are going to be, and we also need to know at that time how much we're sending back to the county. So that's a hard deadline. We'll have a meeting, so that decision has to be made that early.
So we're all ready to go at that time and set the public hearing. And we should be on track to adopt it before the statutory deadline. And
It's going smooth. Thank you, gentlemen.
well, thank you very much. It was, this is my 20, what did I been on? I can't remember, but it was probably the most challenging just because of circumstances that we all got. So appreciate everybody working with me on that. I think, the public will be pleased with what we deliver to them. They're essentially not getting a tax increase, not setting any services, accomplishing those two goals of this economic plan is, pretty good. So thank you. What's that?
We're ready to go?
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Joe. Appreciate you coming.